Honduras is set for Sunday's general elections. More than 5 million citizens are eligible to vote for the President of the Republic and other officials. Cuba commemorates with a march this Saturday 150 years of the execution of 8 medical students at the hands of the Spanish colonialism that prevailed in the largest of the West Indies. Several people in Lebanon intruded in the Social Affairs Ministry protesting against the economic and social crisis the country experiences. Hello, welcome to From the South. I am your news anchor, Diego Martin, from the TeleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. Stay with us. All is ready in Honduras for more than 5 million citizens eligible to vote to go to the polling stations this Sunday and elect the President of the Republic and other officials. Amid calls for peaceful and transparent elections, Hondurans hope that they will help to put an end to several months of political violence and confrontation between the parties participating. Citizens will also be able to elect mayors, deputy mayors, and municipal councilors in the 298 municipalities of the 18 departments of the Central American nation. Among the 13 candidates to succeed Juan Orlando Hernandez, the favorites are the ruling party's Nasri Asfura of the right-wing National Party and Xiomara Castro of the left-wing Libertad y Refundación y Libre Party. Political leaders, judicial and electoral authorities, as well as the resident commissioner of the United Nations in Tegucigalpa, have called for peace, calm, and civility. Honduras National Police began its deployment to guarantee all needed security measures for the elections development this Sunday, November 28th. National Police spokesman Edgardo Barahona explained how an extensive security plan organized with the National Electoral Council advances to guarantee the process to develop in peace and calm. According to Barahona, both the National Police and armed forces will guard the access to educational centers fitted as polling stations during the voting on November 28th. He also emphasized the plan meets biosecurity measures required by the country's health authorities.
On November 28th, we will also provide protection to those people who arrive to exercise their vote, as established by law, maintaining those 200 meters distance among voting tables, thus supporting the access of people arriving to the voting centers so that they do it in an orderly and safe way, especially considering that our plan also integrates this new normal of 2021 of coexistence with the COVID-19 pandemic. Therefore, we are also requesting the implementation of biosecurity measures.
And Director of National Police Alexis Gallo assured that the armed forces, which have been singled out for their role against the demonstrations denouncing electoral fraud, have been prepared and trained to guarantee the development of elections.
We have been firm and constant in the electoral race, directing actions of dissuasion and risk prevention prior to election day. In this context, in the National Police, we have prepared ourselves by first analyzing the lessons learned from other recent processes, updating our action protocols, especially those that allow us the use of force, training our personnel in the role we have as National Police in the electoral process.
The Honduran Air Force General Commander Tito Livio Moreno Coelho expressed the country's armed forces' commitment to protect the right of citizens.
We proclaim all our professionalism based on ethical and moral principles, as well as patriotic and institutional values, in order to fulfill this new mission of safeguarding individual rights, constitutional guarantees, human rights, and other rights of every Honduran citizen following the law, so people may attend in peace and calm to exercise their right to elect and be elected. This electoral process must be an inspiring civic celebration for our country, the region, and the world. We acknowledge the activities of international organizations, non-governmental organizations, and other actors of international community that are accompanying us as observers of this process.
Honduras is a few hours away from Elections Day. The United States government asked citizens for respect and patience regarding the results of November 28th. On its Twitter account, the Embassy of the United States in Honduras asked the Central American country's citizens for calm and to accept official results. The National Electoral Council explained it will disclose the vote breakdown according to the country's law. Over 5 million voters of the 9.5 million inhabitants in Honduras are fit to exercise their right to elect their political representatives. In the turnout, the OAS will participate as an observer, as well as the European Union and Honduras civil society organizations. Cuban President Miguel Díaz-Canel attended in Havana a march honoring the student martyrs of November 27, 1871, in the 155th anniversary of their execution due to the injustice and cruelness of the Spanish colonial authorities.
The historical steps of the University of Havana, a walk taken over by the students. Thousands of young Cuban citizens gathered to honor the 8 medicine students assassinated 150 years ago. At the march, President Miguel Díaz-Canel spoke out, saying it was precisely a massive walk against that hate that took many innocent lives like theirs.
This march is not for solely remember those 8 medicine students. It's also for remembering all the values of our country, our society. One is humanism, then there is internationalism. We have many principles, and some of them we have to rescue, but many are well established.
From the University Hill over San Lazaro Street all the way to La Punta, once the stronghold in which the 8 medicine students were executed in 1871, their presence was felt once again in the drive of other youth. Right now, the youth role is very important, the most decisive, because we were the future, and our ideals are what we will shape the country for the future. So, these are all the thoughts we must keep alive, and it depends on us. Mostly that depends on us. After almost 2 years marked by the isolation measures due to COVID-19 on the islands, and after strong political tensions and destabilization attempts prompted from foreign aggressors, it seems like this November 27th, Cuban students take the street once again.
In these recent times of pandemic awareness, the youth was present as volunteers in quarantine centers, supporting the transformation process in social networks and rejecting interventionist plans from the reactionary circles in the US. Also, the youth will be in all the tasks the revolution needs to be done.
The sun touches the stone of the monument built right in the place where 150 years ago the crime was committed, which ended with the lives of Carlos Verdugo, Alonso Álvarez, Carlos de la Torre, Ángel Laborde, Anacleto Bermúdez, José de Marcos Medina, Pascual Rodríguez, and Eladio González. It is a moment for reaffirming our convictions, for us to once again feel like we are worthy heirs of the struggle of independence of our country. Of course, we feel proud every day for having been born here, and right now we have to commemorate also the 5th anniversary of the Commander-in-Chief's passing away. Cornerstone of our revolution's development, we are convinced of that. The 115th anniversary of the death of the medicine students is a date we all, as doctors and students, know very well, because it came out of the most heinous injustice. A century and a half after those events, in the Caribbean island, the youth marched to remember that the 8 medicine students aren't lost in oblivion or dead, for they are the symbol of the young citizens of today, who 3 days ago honored Fidel in the steps of the University of Havana. These images bear witness of the youth support of the revolution and their keen remembrance of history.
Lisandra Andrés, TeleSUR, La Habana, Cuba.
We'll take a short break now. Join us again after this. Hi, welcome back to From the South. In Bolivia, as part of the referred to as Patriotic March in support of President Luis Arce on his 5th day of mobilization, residents are expected to travel 45 kilometers. This march intends to reach the city of La Paz to demonstrate its support for the Bolivian president and democracy, threatened as they claim by a new coup d'etat in preparation. The march is led by the social organizations of the 9 departments of Bolivia and continues to advance despite the low temperatures and rain. Along the route, the population of the neighboring communities has joined the mobilization to strengthen it. On a note of the Mexican government's decision to grant visas to thousands of migrants, 3 new caravans have left Tapachula in the last hours trying to advance to Mexico City, where they could receive documents that would regulate their migratory status. According to media reports, 3 groups of migrants totaling up to around 2,000 crossers conform this 7th migrant caravan of 2021. The National Institute of Migration reiterated it will continue with the mobilizations in buses, but also organize the travelers to carry on with their regulation procedures. Mexico has detected more than 190,000 undocumented immigrants from January to September, nearly three times the number in 2020, and has deported nearly 74,000, according to the Migration Policy Unit of the country's Secretariat of Governorship. Washington and Taipei defied Beijing with a new meeting between representatives of the United States and the self-proclaimed Taiwanese government. A committee of Republican and Democrat lawmakers from the United States visited Taiwan to meet with the leader of the self-proclaimed government, Tsai Ing-wen, on Friday morning with the purpose of reinforcing the U.S. strategy of straining the special administrative region's relations with Beijing. The meet occurred a few weeks after a group of 6 Republican officials visited the island, and is the third made by Congresspeople from the United States this year so far.
Only the third congressional delegation from the United States Congress to travel to Taiwan this year. But I am hopeful with the progress we've made together in overcoming the COVID-19 pandemic that frequent travel to Taiwan by U.S. policymakers will become business as usual again. This is
More than 400 migrants rescued by non-governmental organization Sea-Watch disembarked Saturday in the Sicilian port of Augusta after waiting several days for a safe port. The 461 migrants, including 178 underage, 149 of whom were unaccompanied, were recently rescued from vessels in difficulty in the Mediterranean Sea in 7 different operations. Sea-Watch 4 rescued a total of 482 people, but 21 of them had been previously evacuated for medical reasons. It entered port in Augusta Friday afternoon, but disembarkment operations were delayed a day due to health checks, including coronavirus tests. The French government stated its disposition to discuss the autonomy of the Caribbean island of Guadeloupe. French Minister for Outer Seas Dependencies Sébastien Lecornu announced that the elected officials of Guadeloupe proposed discussing the island's autonomy and stated the willingness of Paris to address the subject as long as it helps solve the problems on the country. This declaration comes after the protests in the island prompted by COVID-19 regulations as well as other issues in the territory, such as the high cost of living and low salaries, unemployment, and mistrust in the French government's policies. The island has undergone several attempts at autonomy since the Second World War, with the inconformity of its residents who affirm they are constantly treated like second-class citizens by the French authorities. Hundreds of Cyprus activists protest against construction in untouched Akamas Peninsula. Activists have taken to the streets of the capital Nicosia and demonstrated in front of several government buildings to protest for construction projects in the Akamas Peninsula, a largely unspoiled coastal area situated on the western point of the Mediterranean island of Cyprus, and home to one of the few sea turtle nesting areas in the region. Protesters ask the entire Akamas Peninsula designated as a national park, biosphere reserve, or protected area with a corresponding international protection regime, the demolition of illegal structures, and the restoration of environmental damage. We have more news coming up after a final short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Several people in Lebanon intruded in the Social Affairs Ministry protesting against the economic and social crisis the country experiences. The demonstrators expressed their full-out disagreement towards the policies carried out by the government. They consider the life conditions and the rise in basic goods prices to be unbearable. Fuel and certain medicines have been made inaccessible to many citizens, while the drop of the Lebanese pound is at 25,100 per dollar, with a huge impact on the ruin of the nation's purchasing power. Military authorities informed Saturday that the Federal Army of Ethiopia picked up several victories in the conflict against the Tigray People's Liberation Front, taking control of the high ground surrounding the city of Badi, in Amdara, and in other areas. Last Tuesday, the Eastern African country's Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed committed himself to leading the army from the front lines in action that, according to the government sources, boosted morale among soldiers. The federal government of Ethiopia resorted initially to negotiations, as they claimed, but the Premier's office declared that the rebel side shut down any nonviolent resolution to the conflict. The Tigray region has been a scenario for a gruesome armed conflict that has aggravated the living conditions of all of the area's inhabitants. President of Cuba, Miguel Diaz-Canel, on Friday highlighted the work of the State Center for the Control of Pharmaceuticals, Equipment, and Medical Devices, SICMED, in an act of recognition for its results in the fight against COVID-19. The president highlighted the seriousness, alerts, and demands of the institution, which allowed the Caribbean island not only to have 3 vaccines certified against the disease, but also to be among the most immunized countries in the world. In the capital's Convention Palace, Cuba's Ministry of Public Health awarded SICMED with a special recognition for its dedication in the fight against COVID-19. The National Union of Health Workers, the Federation of Cuban Women, and the Committees for the Defense of the Revolution also received their scientific awards.
I would like to express our recognition, our gratitude, and our congratulations for everything you have achieved. You have always worked, and above all, you have defended the accuracy and demands in all the processes related to the certification of clinical trials, drugs, and protocols. We also know what you have done, how you have had to multiply in these times with that seriousness that saves, so that all the procedures, all the treatments, and the new vaccines that have been developed in the country could go through. And the major intervention that was the vaccination campaign.
And another COVID-related news, the Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention held a topping-out ceremony on Friday to mark the structural completion of the main building of the organization's future headquarters in a southern suburb of Ethiopia's capital, Addis Ababa. The project, featuring modern offices, high-end laboratories, and other facilities, is being constructed on 9 hectares of land with a total building area of 23,570 square meters. Supported by funding from China, the new headquarters are expected to be completed in just over 2 years. Upon its completion, the Africa CDC headquarters will further improve the continent's ability to control and prevent the spread of diseases, enhance Africa's public health system, and benefit the local people. Since 2020, China has provided 53 African countries and the African Union with 120 batches of test kits, protective suits, masks, shields, and goggles, ventilators, and other emergency supplies. China also dispatched medical teams to 17 African nations to fight against the pandemic.
Our role is disease control, disease prevention. So when you suspect something, you need to be able at least to identify what is the problem. So this building, these facilities, let me say, will offer us this opportunity. So it means a lot for us. Our role.
Alarms are rising over the new Omicron variant of the COVID-19 pandemic. More than 10 countries decided to impose travel restrictions to incoming flights from other nations where the new strain has been detected. The variant, recently identified, seems to be spreading quickly over the south of Africa and was found in Hong Kong, Botswana, Belgium, and Israel, stirring up concern in the scientific community due to the unusually high number of mutations that can make it more contagious and result in lack of immunological adaptability. For this reason, on Friday, countries like Brazil, United States, Italy, Austria, France, Germany, and Japan decided to limit or straight up shut down the flights coming in from some of the sub-Saharan nations, as well as Canada, United Kingdom, Singapore, Netherlands, Malta, Malaysia, Morocco, Dubai, Jordan, and the Philippines did the same. United Kingdom's Health Secretary Sajid Javid confirmed 2 cases of the new coronavirus variant Omicron in the UK on Saturday. One case is in Chelmsford and the other is in Nottingham. However, Javid said the 2 individuals are linked.
We are adding 4 more countries to the red list from 4 a.m. on Sunday, and those are Angola, Mozambique, Malawi, and Zambia. If anyone has travelled to these 4 countries or any of the other recently red-listed countries in the last 10 days, then they must self-isolate and take PCR tests. And also, later today, the Prime Minister will be holding a press conference with the Chief Scientific Advisor to the government and the Chief Medical Officer to set out further measures. And lastly, this is a real reminder to us all that this pandemic is far from over. And if there's one thing that everyone can be doing right now is, if they're eligible, please take your vaccine, whether it's your first shot, your second shot, or your booster jab. If you're eligible, please.
And at least 61 passengers in 2 flights from South Africa tested positive for COVID-19 after their arrival in Amsterdam. They are currently under the evaluation of health specialists in the capital of the Netherlands in order to determine if they are affected by the Omicron strain. In a communique, Dutch health authorities explained that 61 of the tests turned out positive while 531 are negative, so virus carriers were put in isolation in a hotel nearby the airport after remaining in the aircraft for hours. Should these travelers not bear any symptoms, they would stay no longer than 5 days in the accommodations. Otherwise, they will remain there a minimum of 7 days. Those who tested negative are to be quarantined in their homes. We've come to the end of this news brief. Remember, you can find these and many other stories at our website, TeleSUR English. You can also follow us on social media for all the latest news. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For TeleSUR English, I am Dio Martin. Thanks for watching.